folks, welcome to the channel, Thinking Theology. I'm Don. Here I just take a look at theological topics. I don't establish them. And atheistic arguments, Hitchens, Dawkins, scientific, James Webb Space Telescope, anything that might have theological implications, I'll take a look at. I'm neutral on it. I just like seeing the different strains of thought that people present from their respective positions, if you will. So today, I'm looking at, can Christians get married without government or government approval? And I did know somebody some years ago. This person and the person they were with went out in the woods and announced before God that they were married. And their family was not happy. And then her family wasn't happy. His, I don't know. I didn't know them. But we're going to find out here. I have officiated 2 weddings. So I have a little bit of familiarity with why, and I've studied this and read this. Liz Gilbert did a really good book as a follow-up to Eat, Pray, Love. I think it was 2 books after that where she dissected marriage in the history of mankind and how it's been done. And it was very enlightening, the purpose for marriage in different cultures, but even in America, which is where I reside. But let's see what this gentleman says. Can Christians get married in God's eyes without government registration? All right, let's hear what he's got to say. Oh, standard reason.
I was recently asked if Christians can get married in the eyes of God without government registration. And if so, should they or shouldn't they? Well, I think the obvious and kind of immediate answer that comes to mind is yes, of course, Christians can get married in the eyes of God without government registration. They've been doing that for thousands of years. In fact, Adam and Eve obviously did not have a government to sanction their marriage. Instead, in the eyes of God, they were married.
Were they? I never saw that they were married. They were just together. Interesting. I think that that's not right. But let's see where he goes with it.
Even today, my wife and I, we live, of course, in the United States. And when we got married, our pastor married us. And I would argue that in the eyes of God, that's when my wife and I were actually married. But then at a later time, we filled out the appropriate government forms, the marriage license, and got that to be a part of the government sort of sanctioned marriage. So,
well, government sanctions marriage in a sense because the government is concerned with the distribution of assets. Government does not care, at least in America. In maybe, I don't know, Iran or so, in theocracies, maybe you do. They do. But in America, it is primarily about the children. It's really just a financial interest. In America, they could not care less if you believe in God, don't believe in God, if you're Jew, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, anything. They don't care. That's not what they care about. It is, how are the assets going to be divided if this marriage ends? How will the children be taken care of? It's strictly financial. So far, he's saying essentially when you make a commitment to one another before God, that seals the marriage, what constitutes a marriage. But let's see what else he says if he really gets into why government is important.
Yes, Christians can get married without government registration. And in the eyes of God, they are actually married. God does not need government registration to recognize a marriage. However, Christians cannot get married in the eyes of the government without getting a marriage license. And the reason why they might want to get married in the eyes of the government is because when you get married by the government standards, you get all the protections and benefits and privileges that come with state-sanctioned matrimony. And of course, those are intended to help take care of and to promote and to nurture families that are formed when people get together and get married. That's, true. By the way, why I would recommend for Christians to not only get married in the eyes of God, but also to go the next step and get married in the eyes of the government as well, to get the marriage license. Because that way they can participate with the government and get those protections and privileges that come with state-sanctioned matrimony. By the way, I hope you recognize that the government is a God-given institution. God has given humanity 3 institutions to help it to flourish and to protect it. Right? God's given us the church, God's given us the family, and God's given us the government. So the government is a God-given institution that is intended to help human beings flourish, to protect innocent people, to punish evildoers. And that's why when governments fail to do their job or they become corrupt, evil thrives and human beings don't flourish, okay?
Well, the point also behind marriage, governmental marriage too, in the United States is there's an expression too, the quickest way to become poor is to get divorced. If you look at poverty rates in the inner city, it's tied directly to, or poverty rates anywhere, but certainly in the inner cities, it's tied directly to fatherless households, like mothers raising children. It's something like 70 or 75% of kids in the inner city now are born out of wedlock. So when you've got a two household income, two parents working, it's pretty simple. You have more money coming in and you've only got one set of bills, one mortgage or one rent, one utility, and the utilities might be higher with two additional people, to one additional person living there. But it does, those benefits are to reduce the poverty level among people because just sharing these bills is less expensive per person.
But notice, because the government is a God-given institution, it's appropriate for us to participate in this government-sanctioned matrimony and to get the privileges and the benefits that come with that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So long as the government has not, gone completely awry and is just, just horrifically evil, then maybe you could argue, yeah, okay, so maybe you don't want to participate with everything the government does. But at least in our country, at this point, there's no reason why we can't, as Christians, participate even in getting married in the eyes of the government with a marriage license.
Okay. No, I mean, he kind of covered it in ways. I mean, whether you believe that marriage is a God-given institution or the church is God-given or the government is God-given or if mankind just created this on their own, either way, I mean, he covered the basics on a practical level where he's addressing it specifically to Christians because I assume stand to reason. I think I did one or two other reactions with them, and I like the quality of their videos. I like the way they present what they present, even if I disagree with it. That doesn't matter to me. The practical part of what he said is, hey, you can do both. To do what we do traditionally anyway. You can have your pastor there. You can have your officiant there. Then sign the paperwork. Let the government know that you're an item. Obviously more than that, but you do get tax benefits and so forth. And it is for that reason to keep the poverty rates down. There are inducements to get married, but it's also that when 50% of marriages, and that's true even in the Christian community, where roughly 50% of marriages, first marriages, end in divorce. It had been, I think, upwards of 70% of second marriages ended in divorce, and which isn't... I think people jump into things too quickly or just become less tolerant. I think, after I got divorced, I didn't get involved with someone for a long time because I was taking a personal inventory and was trying to figure out what I want so that I don't carry baggage into the next relationship. And I think people do that where they jump too quickly. They want to replace what they had. They had another partner, and now they think they've got it all figured out. And you develop a library of skills and awareness going into the second marriage, and then it turns out you rushed into it and you're less tolerant. And so, I don't know. I sort of worked my way to being like some more tolerant. I'm fairly tolerant. I have my moment. We all have our buttons that get pushed, but in terms of participating in the governmental side of things, yeah, sign the paperwork. And then the kids get provided for, or if you're a single income household, if one, typically the woman, but sometimes the husbands are stay-at-home dads or whatever, they get provided for through alimony. And that's the primary interest of the government, as I understand it. So anyway, I thought that was pretty cool. So you guys can leave your comments on that one, and we'll go from there. Have a great day. See you on another video, and keep thinking theology.